All right. Red light, green light. Did you guys play that as a kid? I did. So I had to put that in our title today because we actually are talking about red light and green light and blue light and near infrared and far infrared and all kinds of light. Like my guest is Scott Chaverri and he's quite the innovator. If you haven't checked out Mito Red Light yet, check them out. Like go to their website. You can click the link in the show notes. Like look at what they've got going. They have like so many cool options for light therapy. I'm just blown away. So we're going to talk about them today. Let me tell you a little bit of Scott's background. He has a bachelor's in psychology from Cornell and an MBA in finance from the Simon School of Business. And he worked for several Fortune 500 companies before he started dealing with some personal health challenges. And he's just been a, biohacker, long-term biohacker before he decided to move over into this space that he's so passionate about. And I'm grateful that he has that business background that he does because he's been able to bring some really cool products to the market. If you're watching me on YouTube, I got one on right now. I have the Mito Pro Mobile. This thing is so powerful. And that's what I like about their products is that they're very high quality, and they have everything from something like this that I just have on my desk to the full panels to full on beds you lay in to the face mask to helmets for hair growth to the wraparound pads. Like they have a lot of options. And one of the things is also it's a red light that can also go green. And I'm not going to tell you what that's for yet because I'm going to let Scott tell you. And they've got like intranasal stuff they're doing already with red light and blue light, like super rad. So we'll go ahead and get into it. If you like something that Mito Red Light has to offer and you want a 5% discount, you can click the link in my show notes or you can use the coupon code Coach Tara. The link has that applied already for you. But if you're just listening to this randomly and you want to type in mitoredlight.com, that Coach Tara code will get you 5% off anything. So that's pretty cool. And also, just before we jump in, I want to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Paluva, for this show. Paluva shoes, I am just absolutely loving. I've been wearing them more and more and more because my body just feels so good when I do, because they allow my toes to actually spread out and move. And I notice a difference. I notice a difference in my biomechanics. It almost feels healing, which makes sense, but that's how it feels. So definitely check out Paluva shoes. You can use that same coupon code Coach Tara for 15% off. And they have hiking ones. They have regular ones that you would just wear around every day. They have like more stylish casual ones. These are Mark Sisson and also Brad Kearns is involved with Paluva. So by the way, I have to give them a quick shout out because if you didn't see, Mark Sisson just came out with a new book that Brad also wrote with him because they like to write books together called Born to Walk. So if you missed that episode with me and Brad Kearns talking about the book, check that out. And the book is available now, I believe, I think. Go to Born to Walk book and check it out. I've seen Mark posting about that on his Instagram. So yeah, so Paluva shoes, red lights, Born to Walk book. Okay, we're all set. Let's go ahead and get into the show. Here is Scott Chaverri. All right, so Scott, I'm super excited to dive into red light with you today. Thank you for coming on.
Have me?
Okay, so you guys are up to some really cool stuff in the red light space. And I just want to say for my audience, like at first, when red light was first kind of becoming a thing, I fully admit, even as somebody who's really into biohacking and especially ones that mimic nature, like light, I kind of brushed it to the side. I didn't really get into red light for a while. And then the more I kept reading research, which by the way, I typed into PubMed today, right before we started, near infrared, and there were 67,116 results for near infrared, right? And, almost 10,000, just under 10,000 just for red light, just the words red light on PubMed, So it's really, as I started to actually look into it more, I was like, this is really awesome. So I want to get nerdy with you today, but I also want to start out just really broadly and really simply for somebody who like this is their introduction to red light. What would you say to somebody who just they're walking up to you, they're like, "What is the point of your devices? Why did you make these? How can I use this in my life?"
Well, I think kind of the starting point for understanding red light is understanding the solar spectrum. So, like you said, these are wavelengths of light that we get from the sun, but the solar spectrum is made up of ultraviolet light, UVA, B, and C, and then visible light, so what we think of high school physics, Roy G. Biv, and then infrared. So, and that's an infrared split up of near, mid, and far. And so what red light therapy is very specific part of that spectrum, where it's again visible red light, which is usually between 600 and 700 nanometers, which is the wavelength, and then near infrared, typically in these devices, 700 to 900 nanometers. And so there's this specific window in the solar spectrum called the optical window, and you can look it up on Wikipedia. And essentially, what's special about this kind of band in the solar spectrum is that the wavelengths are long enough to penetrate into the body, and but they don't create heat. They're non-thermal. So when you get up into mid and far infrared, that's the warmth that we feel from the sun is from those wavelengths of light, literally going in, being into our bodies, being absorbed by water and creating heat. Whereas ultraviolet light's very high energy, short wavelength doesn't penetrate that deep into the body. And those shorter wavelengths tend to get absorbed by other chromophores in the body, like melanin and hemoglobin. And so, again, there's a special window in the solar spectrum where you get the penetration, but you don't get the heat creation. And those wavelengths can go deep into the body and they actually act on the mitochondria and essentially help the mitochondria make energy.
Yeah, my short spiel on red light therapy or near infrared is when people ask, I'm like, it makes your mitochondria work better. So when your mitochondria can work better, everything works better. All the processes your body needs to do is just getting a really concentrated form of the sun, which, okay, here's my thing with biohacking, okay? Because there's so much. There's so many companies and there's so many different ideas. And especially having a podcast and social media presence, like I get hit up by a lot of biohacking companies. And so I had to start making some metrics here. I'm like, basically, does it mimic nature in a way that helps us adapt to our modern lifestyles? And this one definitely fits that because, I live in Hawaii. I moved to the big island of Hawaii so I could be out. We got 70 something degrees year round average temperature. I'm still not outside all day. I'm not outside right now. I wasn't outside for several hours before this, and I'm missing out. We're missing out no matter how, unless you work outside all day. Like 99% of us are just sitting in our house for over 90% of the day. And so we're missing out on those benefits and we're getting all these other weird light spectrums on top of it. Can you speak on that?
So, well, first of all, I totally agree with you. So I'm very skeptical, and I've been in this business for 6 years now, but I've been a biohacker, I would say. Well, I'd probably say since I was a teenager, since I had acne and nobody could really help me with that problem. So I had to find my own solutions. But one of the things that I really kind of settled on in terms of trying to have a filter for what's real and what's not is pretty much exactly what you said. How did our ancestors live? And how do we live now? And where might there be booby traps in modern lifestyle? And certainly, without a doubt, one of them is the lighting environment that we're exposed to
Yeah.
and also that we're not exposed to. So our ancestors were outside
Right.
all day long. They were bathing in these beneficial wavelengths of light all day long.
Yeah.
And now the stat from 20 years ago, the US government did a study and they told us that 93% of the time we're indoors, right, compared to our ancestors. And then on top of that, uh, the light that we are exposed to indoors is lacking in red and near infrared light. So even I actually have a halogen light up here. It's an incandescent and it creates heat, but those have been essentially phased out. And so
Right.
you're forced to use LED lights, but the LED lights that are used for ambient lighting are essentially blue and green light. And
Mhm.
so actually, it's very interesting. I have a prototype of a lamp that I'm building that's going to be more biorhythmic light and have the
Ooh,
wavelengths of light that are aligned with like what you would get from the sun. So
cool.
it's top secret, but not so top
Yeah,
secret
can't
anymore. It's
wait.
literally, it's literally right here. I have it above my desk.
Oh,
I have
cool.
it shined out on my workspace. I'm testing it, but
Sign me up. You have a customer.
I'll send you a prototype. You can tell me all the ways it stinks so I can make it better.
Okay, thanks.
But
Yeah,
even
right.
the ambient lighting that I have in the other LED lights in my office is essentially blue light, a blue light LED, and then a blue light with what's called a yellow phosphor. So it's basically yellow coating. That blue going through the yellow creates green. And those two LEDs And that green, that blue, yellow, green light creates just enough yellow and orange where our brain perceives all of that as white. But that's not real white
Wow.
light. It's fake white light. It's basically blue and green
Wow.
light. It's actually lacking in cyan too, which is the color between blue and green. And it's
Mhm.
massively lacking in red and orange and yellow. And of course, no infrared. So that is what, unfortunately, the current state of affairs is with our indoor lighting environment, completely lacking in infrared and red and cyan, for instance. And so it makes sense just from that perspective that, hey, maybe you might want to supplement with some beneficial red and near infrared light in your life.
Yeah, and kind of in a concentrated dose, and that was, for some I get asked this a lot, like, how close do you need to be to get the benefits of these light spectrums?
Depends on the power of the device. I mean, generally
Mm,
speaking, you want to be between 10 milliwatts per square centimeter and 100. It's a good range for efficacy and safety. Start worrying about safety at 2 to 300 milliwatts, especially for the eyes. But so between 10 and 100, I think is enough to move the needle. But obviously, depending on what you're using it for, if you're closer to 10, you'd probably want to use it for a much longer time. Like that device you have there at uh, 3 to 6 inches is probably around 50 milliwatts or so.
okay.
And again, and just the area that it's shining on. So it's
Mhm.
it's pretty powerful, that little guy you have.
I know, I
And
had to
some
turn it away, I can't even I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, man, this thing is strong." But even
and
then, near infrared, I'm not gonna feel or see, but
yeah, like you might feel a little bit. You might feel a gentle warmth. I mean, there is just a little bit of water absorption of some of the near
okay,
infrared that's used, but it's very minimal. If you
okay.
actually I could send you a graph of the optical window, and you see at over 1,000
Yeah, I can
nanometers, the water absorption goes up, and it's on a logarithmic scale too. So that's why, again, that's why mid infrared and far infrared are used in saunas. But devices like ours, typically 6 inches, like the real powerful ones are 70 milliwatts, and then if you get to 12 inches, you're at 50, and if you get to 18 inches, you're at 30. So you're still within a range. We usually say 6 to 18 inches is a good distance between the devices that we manufacture. You
6
get
to 18, is that what you said?
6 to 18. You get it further than that, you might risk dropping below that 10 milliwatts, and it's just not enough to really move the needle.
Okay, cool. All right, real quick, applications for red light. Like we basically said it speeds up your mitochondria, which that is still I stand by that. I'm like, if you can increase the health of your mitochondria, you increase the health of everything. But let's talk real applications. Like somebody's like, why? So I'm just gonna use this to like boost my health, I guess, like more concentrated applications. Like, why would somebody want to use these devices for their health specifically?
Well, sure. So the first answer to the question, I'll reiterate what I said is that you're probably deficient in red and near infrared light. So from that standpoint, supplementing makes sense. You're just correcting a deficiency. But then there is the micro, so that's the macro story. I like to call it the macro
Yeah.
story, big picture.
Yeah.
Micro story is literally micro, like at the size of the mitochondria.
Yeah.
The power plants of the cell absorb these wavelengths of light, and it helps them make ATP. So really, any cell that has mitochondria can potentially benefit from exposure to red and near infrared light. As far as like practical applications that you see, the first would be that jumps to mind is hair loss, and it's actually how the effects of red light were initially discovered. There was a Hungarian scientist, I think in the 50s or 60s. The laser had just been invented, and he was replicating a study. He was using a red laser, and he was studying skin cancer in mice. So he gave the poor mice tumors. Surgically and put the tumors in the skin, and then he ablated the tumors with the red laser to see if anything would happen to the cancer. Now, nothing happened to the cancer, but he noticed that the wounds healed faster in the group that got the red laser, and that their hair grew back faster because he shaved the poor mice as part of the thing. So it was so then for decades actually they thought that it had to be a laser. It had to be red lasers, and all the studies were done on lasers, but then ultimately they realized that LEDs, which are actually much safer than lasers, can be used in the same way. So there's a lot of we sell a hair growth helmet, and that's actually been well established for a long time. Uh, Skin health is another one. Red and near infrared light's been used by dermatologists for a long time, or estheticians, in clinic for the skin benefits. And certainly, I think a lot of our customers purchase our products because they're hoping for skin benefits. I mean, there's a ton of masks that you've probably seen on the market, which are okay. I don't have anything in principle against the mask, except that they are relatively low powered. Typically, they're like 15 milliwatts,
Mm,
and the diodes are spread. You have it right up in your face, and the diodes are spread out, so you actually have a lot of dead spots.
mm,
I personally, I think a panel is just a far superior way to do it because you have more power, and
mm,
you don't have those dead spots. You have even coverage, right, of the light.
mm.
To me, it's a far superior way, and then also they're just much more durable. Like the panels just
Right.
last for years with those masks because they're flexible. They're going to break down over time.
Yeah.
Um,
And you don't look like a joke reel on Instagram of like the biohacking obsessed people when your partner or whoever comes in. You're like, hey. Yep. But maybe some people like that. They want the image. I'm turning my light back on. If you guys aren't watching on YouTube, I'm blasting myself with red light right now. It's kind of fun. It's like party. I should do this all the time on my
Yes.
podcast. It looks like I'm having like some sort of cool party over here.
Please do, please do. Um, The another application like real is sleep. And actually, why if somebody asked me like why should I do this? And I think that was kind of the question you asked, I would say, well, I think if it helps you get better sleep, I mean, there's a lot of downstream benefits to getting better sleep. I know I make better decisions. I function better during the day. I feel better. I just kick ass better at life when I've got a good night's sleep. And it was actually personally one of the uh, primary things that I noticed when I first started using these devices. I think in 2017 was the first time I used red light. Is that I was sleeping a lot better. And
Makes
we can get
sense.
into the mechanisms, but the short story is that it helps. We think it increases extra pineal melatonin production, infrared light in
Hmm.
particular. So you actually So here's the short synopsis. When and our ancestors would be out in the sun, they'd be bathing in infrared light all day, increasing metabolic activity, increasing energy production. So that's a good
Mhm.
thing in general, but there's no free lunch in biological systems. So you're creating oxidative stress as a byproduct of ATP production. So that happens, you have higher oxidative stress. So the cells in the mitochondria respond by increasing antioxidant production, in particular melatonin. And so what happens is when you're in the sun all day, you're actually building this massive reservoir of melatonin. Not
Mhm.
pineal gland dim light onset melatonin, but extra pineal melatonin.
Mhm.
So you have this reservoir of melatonin throughout the body so that when the sun sets and hopefully you're throwing your blue blockers on and you're letting your circadian rhythm do what it's going to do and increase the pineal gland dim light onset melatonin production, that melatonin gets spared, doesn't have to go around the body putting out fires that you lit during the day, and you've got more of that available to help you kind of settle down and fall asleep and sleep better. So that's like the
Mhm.
short explanation of how infrared light exposure improves your sleep, which I think could be profound, right? Again, because better sleep, just better life.
Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, everyone I think listening has had the experience when you're out on the lake all day or at the beach all day. You've just been outside all day. Like you fall asleep way earlier. You sleep like a baby. We've all had that experience. So it makes complete and total sense.
Yes,
Um,
but then we get away from it and we don't do anything about it.
Right, exactly. It's like,
It's like
can't wait till my vacation next year when I sleep like a baby. Can't wait for the summer. Yeah, 100%. Okay, this is just a really random question, but I'm curious what your red light setup slash routine personally is like.
so I'm super spoiled in this arena.
Right.
And
So like
so
with unlimited options, what did you create?
So we have a bed in here in the office that I use. I kind of mix it up. I either do it first thing in the morning at home, and at home I have two giant full body panel setups. I have a sandwich, and I just stand in between.
Nice.
Currently on a vibration plate, and
Nice.
then I just do front and back 10, 12 minutes. But sometimes I'll if I don't get to it in the morning, or if I just decide to skip it in the morning and the around lunchtime, I'll jump in the red light bed, which I actually prefer. There's something you just really kind of at least me and other folks have given me this feedback. There's just something that happens to you where you get into that kind of twilight space, not
Yeah.
sleeping, that kind of half awake twilight,
Uh-huh.
like that just
Deep
really restful.
meditative
Yes, yes.
sweet
And I'm not a
spot.
meditator and I don't get there. Like I try, I struggle
Mm.
with meditating, but when I lay in the bed, usually about 6, 7 minutes in, I get to that wonderful twilight space for a couple of minutes, and it's so
Yeah,
worth it.
right.
And so that's typically
You
what I
are a
do.
meditator. You just
Yeah.
being in the in
Well,
your
I get
red
there
light
for two
bed.
minutes and then I'm done. But you
Okay,
feel
okay.
like $1 million
Hey.
coming out of that. You feel great, and it's a great way to kind of, break up the day. And then
Mm.
I also have an energy vitamin D lamp. I'm super passionate about that too. That's not my company, but
Hmm.
I did invest with them, and it's a narrow band vitamin D. It's narrow band UVB light, which UVB is what you need to make vitamin D. So because we're sunlight deficient, everyone's vitamin D deficient, pretty much. And so I have my solution. My company obviously builds devices to supplement red and near infrared light, but I
Hmm.
found an amazing narrowband vitamin D UVB product that I use immediately after I jump out of the bed.
What's that called?
It's called Energy, ENYRGY. I started,
Okay.
I came across them in March. Actually, I believed in them so much that I actually invested in the company. So the
Yeah.
product is far and away better than anything else out there for narrowband UVB.
Mm.
And then I used it myself. I used it April 2024. I tested my vitamin D at 37 and I used it for, which is, low. And so 10,
Mhm.
and I live in Arizona too. Uh, and I try to get outside often. But 10 weeks, 5 sessions a week, and I tested at 78 in
Wow,
mid-June.
really? And
Yeah,
that's it?
and
That's all you weren't were you taking vitamin D also?
no, I don't take vitamin D. I haven't taken vitamin D since
Wow.
2014.
Awesome.
That's kind of a long story where I was
Yeah,
taking
that
it and
sounded like you're like, "Mm-mm-mm."
yeah, I was working with a functional medicine doc and I was taking it and my levels weren't going up and he was just telling me to take more and I said,
Oh,
maybe, that isn't the solution. Um, so and that was with the headwind of heading into the summer here in Phoenix, where I actually spend a lot less time outside than I normally would because it's so hot. Like it gets to be,
mhm.
well over 100 sometimes in May.
Oh,
So
yeah,
in
I'm
May and June,
familiar.
I was not outside at all, and still my
Mm,
vitamin D went way up. So I feel strongly that it was the energy lamp.
very cool. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that. Anything else? Do you use it at night? Is your whole house like red light at night?
I do have a pod under my bed, and sometimes if I don't get a session in either in the morning or in the afternoon, if I have a busy day, I might lay in the pod at night, and so it is a very relaxing way to kind of unwind. But it's not in the face at all. It's just it's just like a pod that you lay in. It's very comfortable. It gets a little warm. And sometimes the portable unit, if I'll just have that on the couch, and if I'm just spending time with the family, I'll just put it on my head or just put it on my chest and just try to get some red and near infrared light into my body.
Yeah.
Which is, you can get quite a lot actually with that device. But obviously it's just so much smaller that you have to invest a lot more time.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that. I want to just kind of let the audience know real quick. I think what's really cool about you guys is, I mean, not only like, I want to talk about your products a little bit, but I feel like what sets you guys apart is like you have so much variety of really high quality applications and usage of red and near infrared light, right? So because like if you guys go to their website, mitoredlight.com, right? There's these portable ones like I have, there's the full panels, there's like kind of in between, there's the neck wedge red light therapy for neck and spine health, there's the wraps, there's the helmet, there's a mask. I mean, you have intranasal. Let's hit on the intranasal one real quick. And then I want to hit on the green light product that you have also.
Well, first of all, thank you for noticing that. I've been doing this for 6 years, and my goal has been to really be the preeminent light therapy company. Originally, it was red light therapy company, but to be the preeminent light therapy company, and that to me involves excelling in all metrics, exceptional value, exceptional service, exceptional warranty, exceptional durability, and exceptional selection, and not compromising on any of those things every time we launch a new product. And also, when I launch a new product, we want to solve a problem and create something that's better and different and better than what's out there.
Hmm.
So that's and it's I mention all that because it's a lot of work. It's not so easy to just say, oh, we should
Yeah.
do something, and then but then we have to figure out how we're going to build it, and and is there a market for it? But the intranasal is actually one of my favorites. I mean, it's relatively new, but I do think that we could be potentially helping to solve a problem because let's face it, your immune system, and one of the entryways for things into your immune system that you may not like is through the nose, and so that particular device has blue and red light, and blue is very well known to be antimicrobial, and red light, improves cellular function, improves circulation locally in the nose. So it's a really good 1-2 punch for really supporting immune health, right where you want to support immune health, where the beginnings of things happen that, and it could have downstream effects for your well-being. Let's put it that way. So really simple, 5 minutes, blue, red, and then switch, and then get the benefits of blue and red in each nostril. And I know personally, I will never not travel with that without that device. I mean, I went to Austin a couple months ago, and I was using it on the plane, and I was getting questions from my fellow passengers on the plane. I was using it in the airport, and so hopefully we can start a trend. And that next thing you know, you
Yeah.
see an airplane full of people with red blue intranasals.
Austin was the perfect place to travel to with that in your nose. I mean, keep Austin weird. They're like, "Ooh, cool. What's that?" Fully accepted. That's what I love about Austin. It's one of my favorite places. Okay, and then thank you for sharing that. And then let's talk about the green light device. It's red and green.
Yeah,
Okay.
so green light has been studied for migraines, and actually, it's very specific, narrow band green light. So it's really fascinating. There's a study done at Harvard and there's a study done at University of Arizona, and they looked at. It was really interesting because narrow band green light doesn't like you can only get it from LEDs. I mean, that doesn't exist in nature. I mean, nature, the sun's putting out all of the wavelengths. Now you might get some. Yeah, obviously, like if the light reflects off of the green grass, you'll get mostly green, but you actually get infrared too, which is actually interesting. That's a good hack as a
Mhm.
quick tangent. If you want to get exposure to red and near infrared light, but you're concerned about photo aging from the ultraviolet light from the sun, which is a legitimate concern,
Mhm.
sit in the shade, but in a green space
Hmm.
because green actually reflects infrared. So you can literally the sunlight will bounce off of the green grass and bounce up, and you'll get irradiated with infrared without being in direct view of the sun. That's a quick aside and a good
And
hack.
it's like, oh, sorry, I'm just like nature's like, by the way, that place that you wanted to sit because that sounded nice, that's best for you.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that I have this green background here, and it's
Mhm.
really, yeah, it's very interesting, right? Like we love green spaces, like we want those. So
Yeah,
I moved to Phoenix, and I would not buy a house that didn't have some grass in the backyard, or a place for me to lay down grass because I wanted that. And we like going out in nature, and we gravitate toward these spaces. It's not an accident, and now we're finding
right.
that there's some scientific reason
Cool.
behind it.
Yeah.
But anyways, so the study at Harvard, they look at narrow band green light. They looked at all different spectrums of the light spectrum, the visible light spectrum, and for some reason, narrow band green light reduces the severity and duration of migraines. And any other part of the spectrum makes a migraine worse, which is kind of intuitive. When people have a headache, usually they're going into a dark room. They don't want any light at all, any stimulation at all. But there's something about narrow band green that when shined into the eyes or through closed eyes helps with migraines. And so there's two aspects of it. There's the acute use. So you have a migraine, just get some narrow band green light into your eyes at when you have a migraine. But they also
With your
found
eyes open or closed? Sorry.
depends on the device. Our device,
Okay.
we say to close the eyes because
Okay.
it's we're focusing the light a little bit, and it's pretty strong. Which is another thing I'll circle back to. But they also found that if you just have a narrow band green light in your environment for 2 or more hours a day, that it actually reduces the incidence of migraines, which is also fascinating.
Huh.
So,
Wow.
so if you struggle with migraines, I would recommend you can buy these lamps. To have it, I don't personally have migraines, but if I did, I would have a green lamp probably on my desk here, and just make sure it's narrow band green at 520 nanometers. And then you can consider our device, which is more portable, and also is a fully functional red and near infrared light device. That's what's unique about our device, is that I said, I don't
Right.
want to just make a green light device. I can figure out a
Yeah.
way to do red and near infrared, so you can use it as a portable device, just like you use yours. But if you get a migraine, turn on the green mode, close your eyes, shine it through your eyes, and then hopefully, it helps.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for sharing that. And then yeah, I'm looking at your full body mats, your full body pod, the Mito pod thing that you were talking about is so cool. But you also have a pad for pets, which I think is really cool, right? Because, for example, I have cats. I live in Hawaii. And I love nature, and I'm looking at my cats and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like, do I let them outside?" I feel terrible not letting them outside, but there's all these feral cats, there's all these endangered bird populations, so I looked it up and like, Humane Society of Hawaii is like, "Please keep your cats indoors because of our endangered bird populations," and, we already have all these feral cat problems. And so I was like, "Oh, that feels horrible." So I love this because 'cause I'm like, "That feels mean to keep an animal indoors all the time." I wouldn't wanna be indoors all the time, so what a cool hack for the pets too. I bet they absolutely love it. My cats will, like, lay on my laptops all the time. I don't know about you guys, but they like laying on something that gives off a little bit of heat.
Yeah. Well, I found that the animals gravitate toward it. I mean, even
I
a lot
bet.
of our that's actually what kind of sparked the idea, is that we had so many customers on Instagram sharing their pets, like gravitating toward their red light when the customer was using the light in their home.
Right.
And it's like, oh, it's interesting. Well, I mean, the animals, maybe they're trying to tell us something, or they're just more in
Exactly.
tune with like what is good. And
100%.
so we designed the pet pad. There's no cords, so because maybe they'll get a little chewy, and we don't want any electrical problems. So we designed it battery powered and so safe,
Cool.
and in two different sizes. And that was my wife insisted on it. After all of our customers sharing on Instagram that we should develop something specifically for pets. And I
That's
have to
cool.
say, there's on the product listing, there's such a gratifying review. We had a customer who somehow went on some Houston, ABC Houston, I think it was, and she brought our product on the show and was explaining how it just turned around the health of her dog, who they were thinking about putting down because she was having trouble standing,
Aw.
all of these things. If you're curious, you should watch it. It's only like 2 minutes segment, but and she's like, it was a miracle, and she started walking again, and it was just and so she's such a huge fan of our Pets Pad.
Aw.
It's something that I never really. I thought it was a good idea, and I thought we were solving a problem, but I don't know how huge the market is. I mean, maybe I'll be wrong. So on the business side, but it is so gratifying to see that one person had a really
Yeah.
profound impact. Because I know, I mean, I have three cats. I love my cats, and so I know how people can be about their pets. So
Yeah.
and yes, like you said, they're probably deficient just as we are.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they will find any little shred of sunlight coming through a window with the curtains closed. There's like one little spot of sunlight, they'll go lay in it. So they know that they need that. Okay, I want to take the rest of the time real quick to answer some questions because I asked on Instagram. I said that I was going to be interviewing you today and asked my audience if they had questions, and we got a lot of really great questions. So we're going to just kind of rapid fire these as well as we can here.
Fire away.
Okay. Tara asks, "Will you still get benefits if not using daily?"
Yes. Yes. So we recommend up to 6 times a week. We actually recommend kind of strategically taking a day off a week. And I'm just a fan in general of, just mixing things up, whether it's
Yeah.
diet or exercise, or probably the only exception would be sleep. I do think like having a good sleep schedule is good,
Yeah.
but for everything else, I think mixing it up. And so it is a stressor. It's a hormetic stressor. It's part of how it works. So you don't have to use it every day. I think some of the studies, would suggest probably minimum of 3 times a week.
Okay.
So, but you don't need to do it every day.
Okay, thanks. Grace Ninja asks, "Can it help with eye health?"
Yeah, so there's a lot of good data on this. So now our devices are quite powerful, so we don't typically recommend for that use. Although if one were going to try it, I would probably say, hey, be more in the 18-inch distance. 1 to 2 minutes is plenty. But
Hmm.
there's some really good studies in Europe. They're a little bit further ahead on this. There's a product called Lumithera that I believe is approved by the EU version of the FDA that's being used in ophthalmologists. Oh my gosh, you know the word I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Eye doctors'
that sounds
offices.
hard. I'm not going to
Uh,
try.
and so it's being used in clinical settings for certain eye conditions. So, and again, we are deficient. Generally speaking, we would just say wear the goggles, but brief exposures are quite safe.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Somebody just wanted to say that he's really excited because they just got one for their dad for Christmas, and he's excited to hear the episode. Okay, Monique asked, "Does it reduce wrinkles? Clinically significant results, or just statistically significant?" She asked.
Okay, I would probably ask for a more
Yeah.
a definition of each of those. Look, it's been studied for skin health for a long time. Unquestionably, it improves
Yeah.
skin health. Not just our products, but there are a lot of good products out on the market that are used for skin. Again, and a lot of masks, which, in my opinion, are underpowered and poorly designed in the sense that there are dead spots. But also I would say, if you haven't tried a device yet, purchase ours. We have a 60-day trial. If you try it and you don't notice a difference, send it back, full refund, no hard feelings. But
That's
I'm
cool.
quite confident that if you use it regularly and you take a before picture, that the after picture will be better.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks. Um, okay, Shelby asks, recovery and injury benefits. Also, eye protection data on, is it beneficial to eye health? So we already asked about that one. But recovery and injury, and I think she's asking if you need eye protection, which you kind of already clarified.
Yeah, we would again directly into the face for extended periods. We do recommend it. But yes, there's really good data on wound healing and recovery. Near infrared. So the red light really acts primarily on the skin because it is shorter wavelength, but the near infrared, which is invisible, will go in through bone. And
Right.
so, it can help with bone health. It can help with recovery from deep tissue injury. It can help with recovery from exercise. So, what's interesting is that we know that it can help, but there is no real consensus on, like for exercise, for instance, should you use it before or after? There's no real consensus on that. So I would
Mm,
say mix it up. Uh, Intuitively, I would say, oh, recovery, maybe you should use it after. But actually, maybe if you precondition the body beforehand, it could
right.
be more of a result. So we're still figuring those things out. So I would say mix it up, but
Okay.
definitely we have so many professional athletes that use our products and we get incredible feedback. So I would say, give it a try.
Yeah. I mean, I was using red light and near infrared when I broke my toe. And obviously, it's one of those things that, like, it's like, well, I don't know how fast it would have healed if I didn't use that. And I was using it for quite a while after because the research I was showing, like just osteoblasts don't really come into play in that process till a little bit later. So I was using it for a while, but I felt like I healed so fast from that. Granted, I can't know, right? I can't know, but it
I
just
know.
felt like I was like, wow, that healed really well and really fast. So maybe that was part of it. I was definitely gonna give it a shot. It was pretty significant, like, positive research when you're reading research studies about bone healing and what I'm actually using, and they had positive results. I'm like, "Yep, I'm gonna do that." Okay, Abdiel asks, "Does it produce EMF? If so, how much? Is it low?"
So all of the So we have so many products, so it really depends on the product. Your product is battery powered, and that's direct current, so there's really no EMF. EMF, as we think about it, is an artifact of alternating current, specifically the magnetic field. There's actually three types of EMF. So there's radio frequency, which is, cell phones, Wi-Fi, uh, those things, and then there's the electric field, which is from the current in the walls, and then there's magnetic field, which is an artifact of the alternating current. Basically anything that has 60 hertz alternating current running through it anywhere is going to create some magnetic field, so it's inescapable. The good news about so our devices don't have any radio frequency. A couple of them do have are compatible with our app, which has some Bluetooth, but you can disable the Bluetooth if you don't want it, because I understand that some people don't want to be exposed to any EMF. I mean, my phone is usually on airplane mode. Um, the electric field you don't have to worry about unless you're physically touching the power cord. Otherwise, there's no meaningful electric field. The magnetic field, again, inescapable because there is 60 hertz alternating current powering the device, but it's generally quite low, within a couple of milligauss at most at the surface. At 6 inches, usually drops to below a milligauss, and then at 12 inches, usually drops to background. So if you didn't want to be in the field at all, I would just say, just use it at 12 inches or a little bit further.
Okay.
I mean, that's the good news about magnetic fields. You really can't shield them. They're very hard to shield, but they do dissipate quickly over distance.
Okay, thanks. And then he also asked, what's the difference between Mito Adapt Mega 2.0 and 3.0 series?
Wow, okay. We just switched over to 3.0. He's on tap. So we just upgraded the interface. So we have a touchscreen interface on the 3.0. We think it's more user friendly. It looks
Let's
nicer.
see. Cool.
And we've got brightness control and a few other things that we added. And it is still compatible with the app, but still the part that really matters, in my opinion, is the light and the wavelengths and the customizability of the adapt, and that's the same.
Okay. Okay, cool. So it's just like the upgraded, nicer, more
Nicer user
advanced.
interface, user experience.
Right. It's like iPhone 15.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Thanks. And um we kind of already hit this one, but wrinkles, getting asked specifically about crow's feet. What kind of experiences have you seen with that?
Yeah, actually, so that triggered a thought. One of the things I would recommend, there's a study we're actually working on developing a skin serum to be used prior to red light. Because it's a really interesting study. There's a study I think in 2008 where they used green tea bags on crow's feet, and I think they just literally steeped the bags and then took the bags and put them on the crow's feet for 20 minutes and then used red light. And
Huh.
the before and afters versus the control group were just incredible.
Wow.
And it was just amazing. I could send it to you if you're curious. I mean, it was just night and day difference. And
Crazy.
so the hypothesis is that the antioxidants in the green tea
Right.
kind of buffer the oxidative stress that is created from using red light, and you get more of a net benefit
Uh-huh.
from the increase in the cellular activity and collagen synthesis and all that. Because again, there is oxidative stress. So the hypothesis is, hey, precondition with antioxidants, and you'll get more upside with less of the downside. And so that would be one thing I would suggest is use. It doesn't. I don't know that it has to be green tea, uh, but use an
Could be
antioxidant.
Energy Bits, spirulina. Do you know Energy Bits? You know Catherine Arnson? She
I
talks a lot
do.
about the combination of spirulina and red light, so that could be a good
Oh,
thing
yes.
too.
Well, again, top secret, but the spirulina is one of the ingredients in the serum that we're coming out with.
Cool.
And yes, there's some interesting studies on spirulina and just these blue-green pigments, the way that they
Right.
absorb the red light and interact with the red light. It's really, really interesting and
Cool.
fascinating. So we've got spirulina and green tea. But I think,
Nice.
yeah, but the antioxidant, I think, is the driver of it. So if you don't have these things available, but you have, let's say, probably vitamin C or some other skin serums, as long as they don't have any SPF, because you don't want to block the light,
Right.
right? So it should be like relatively clear and absorbed and not have any SPF in it. And so I'm really excited about, finishing the skin serum we're still in R&D phase, and then really getting it out and then,
Yeah.
getting customer feedback to see if it really enhances the skin benefits of the red light.
Yeah, cool. Smart. Okay, let's see. How long I think you answered this already, but how long should this is our last question. How long should each session be and how often? You said at least 3 times a week, and then how long for, let's say they're doing a full body panel?
Hey, I do 10 minutes.
Okay.
I do eight, depends. I would say depends on what you're using it for. If you said, hey, for the eyes, I'd say, oh, just 1 minute. You don't need a lot. The eyes are very sensitive. For a kind of daily maintenance, I like 10 minutes. That's generally what we recommend with our devices at the recommended usage distance. if you have an injury, like when I tweaked my back 2 Christmases ago, when I was putting my son's bike together, after he opened it, and I was just not using good ergonomics while I was doing that. I had a light on my back for like 45 minutes straight because I couldn't even get off the ground. So that was an acute issue, and so I used a very high dose. But for just kind
Right.
of regular maintenance, 10 minutes, 4 to 6 times a week, I think is a good amount.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Well, wow, that was super informative. Thank you so much for not only coming and sharing with us today, but also making all this cool stuff. I mean, you have really, like, I feel like your inner child is probably like, I'm cool. I'm an inventor." That's how, you know,
You
like
are
you've really been
exactly
going
right.
at it with this. So thanks for doing
I
that.
thank you. Well, thank you for saying that. I have to say, I do feel very blessed, and I'm filled with gratitude that I'm at this point where
Yeah,
company's done well and everything's going well, and now I get to sit back and say, what isn't out there that maybe we can bring to market and create? It's a lot of fun. I mean,
totally.
it's not easy. Like this biorhythmic light and the skin serum. I've been working on that for like a year,
Right.
because also I don't know. There's a lot that I don't know, and you learn by just kind
Right.
of rolling up your sleeves and trying to do it. So I'm learning a lot of things and making a lot of mistakes, but it is quite fun. It is quite
Yeah.
fun to bring things to life and hopefully help people.
Yeah. Do you guys have any trade shows or anything that you're planning on being at in like the next 6 months or something that people, might want to check you guys out at?
That's a great question. I don't know.
You
I
don't
know
know?
A
Okay.
for M is this weekend in Las Vegas, but I can't go, and we didn't get there in time. We
Okay.
probably will do the National Chiropractic Association show again in
Okay.
Florida in the summer. We did that one because of the chiropractic, and then really I think like our bed is such reasonably priced and such good quality that I feel like more chiropractors should be
Yeah.
adopting red light, and I think that they will. So we just have
Right.
to kind of educate them on it. Um, and yeah, I don't know beyond that. Trade shows hasn't been a big part of our strategy.
Okay.
So usually I go as an attendee more because I'm curious about the biohacking stuff, what's new and
Okay.
cool.
Cool. Cool. All right. Well, man, thank you so much. This has been super informative. And if you guys don't follow Mito Red Light on social media, you guys have quite the cool Instagram account. I was like, wow, okay.
Thank you.
It showed
Drake's
up.
our social media guy. I'm going to tell him you said that. He'll be
Okay,
very happy.
yeah. Killing it. You guys have super cool content. You got a pretty big following. Like
He
it's
does a
really
great job. I'm
fun to
super.
follow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Mito Red Light Official, right? Is the name of the Instagram account. Yeah. I mean, you'll
Mhm.
find them, Mito Red Light. Check them out there. And then of course you can go to their website, mitoredlight.com. And just yeah, if you're a health nerd, you're gonna be like a kid in a candy store because there's so many fun and cool options, all the way from something portable and small that you could take with you wherever you're going that, you could make happen financially pretty much no matter where you're at, all the way to like a commercial type bed, and masks and flexible belts and all of this. So it's kind of a fun little biohacking buffet there of products.
Thank you.
So
I love it.
th- thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Inside Out Health Podcast. I hope this episode served as inspiration and something that you needed to hear in your life. If you have a friend or family member that you think would benefit from this episode, please share it with them. And also, please subscribe. I have so many more amazing guests coming. I have just been so gifted and honored to meet so many incredible health professionals in my career, and I cannot wait to share their messages with you guys. So please subscribe. And if you could be so kind as to rate my show, I would really appreciate it. This podcast is honestly an intuitive call to me to help spread goodness to the world. And so if you guys can help me do that, I would really appreciate it. If you want more info on this guest, pop over to my website, check out my podcast section, and you can get links to everything we talked about in the show, and find out more about this guest and where you can go from here. Make sure you're also following me on Instagram. That is my most active platform. You can find me at Coach Tara Garrison. You can also find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. Everything is Coach Tara Garrison across the board. And then, yeah, if you want to send me a message, guys, and let me know other guests or other topics you want to hear on the show, please let me know. I am here to serve you. So would love to hear from you, would love your feedback on the show. And if you share any of these episodes, please tag me on social media. It's Coach Tara Garrison.